Welcome back. Please like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we're diving into some very serious breaking news regarding President Trump and a developing crisis in the Middle East.
That's right. President Trump just issued a major warning to the Iranian government. He's telling them to stop the violence against their own citizens, or the United States will step in.
It's quite the escalation in rhetoric, isn't it? The president took to social media early Friday to address the situation. He posted on Truth Social that if the regime continues to violently kill peaceful protesters, the U.S. will intervene.
He even used the phrase locked and loaded. Jamie, for our listeners who might not know that idiom, what does it mean exactly?
Good point. Locked and loaded basically means you are completely prepared and ready for immediate action, usually in a military sense. It's a very strong way of saying the U.S. is ready to move.
Wow, that is intense. But why is this happening right now? What's the situation on the ground in Iran?
Well, it's been a rough week. Protests have been spreading across major cities like Tehran and Zahedan for 6 days. It actually started because of the economy. The Iranian currency, the rial, has crashed, but now it's turned into a much broader movement against the government.
Right, and it sounds like it's getting dangerous. I read that at least 7 people have died and hundreds have been arrested so far.
Exactly. And the Iranian officials are already pointing fingers. A leader there, Ali Larijani, is accusing the U.S. and Israel of stoking the unrest, which means he thinks we are encouraging the protests to cause trouble.
But the White House isn't buying that, right?
Not at all. They dismissed those claims as a diversion to hide the government's own failures.
This also ties back to the nuclear issue. Remember, last June, the U.S. conducted strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, and President Trump recently met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago.
Exactly. They are worried Iran is trying to rebuild those nuclear capabilities. So President Trump is using this moment of domestic pressure to make sure the regime doesn't restart its nuclear program.
It's a high-stakes situation for sure. We'll have to see how the Tehran regime responds to this warning.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
See you next time.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we're diving into some major news from Ukraine that has everyone talking. What happens when a top spy becomes the right-hand man to a president?
That's exactly the question of the day, Alex. President Zelensky just made a massive reshuffle. That's a word we use for a big staff change in his government. He appointed Major General Kirilo Budanov as his new chief of staff.
Wow, Budanov. Now, for our listeners who might not know, Budanov was the head of military intelligence. He's basically Ukraine's most famous spy leader.
Exactly. He's known for being very influential and quite aggressive. He's overseen some very high-profile operations. So moving him from a secret military role into a top civilian position is a huge signal.
It really is. It shows that President Zelensky is shifting toward a security-centric government. But Jamie, why is this happening right now? The timing seems very specific.
You're right. We are entering the 4th year of this war. But also, there is a renewed diplomatic push happening globally. President Trump is currently leading the way, working with international partners to find a resolution to the conflict.
Right. President Trump is heavily involved in brokering potential ceasefire negotiations. So Zelensky needs someone who understands exactly how the Russian military and their internal politics work.
Exactly. Budanov has that deep knowledge. Zelensky mentioned that this move helps Ukraine focus on national security and, importantly, building more of their own weapons and defense industry at home.
It makes sense. But the situation is still very intense. Just this Friday, while these changes were happening, a double missile attack hit a residential neighborhood in Kharkiv.
It's heartbreaking, Alex. And that's why Zelensky says he needs this new team. He needs leaders who can balance the complexity of the battlefield while also sitting at the negotiating table with President Trump and other leaders.
So this isn't just one change. I heard this might be part of an overhaul?
Yes, an overhaul means a complete change or renovation. Experts expect more changes to the Ukrainian cabinet as we move toward 2026.
It's a lot to take in, but it's a very important moment for global politics. Thanks for explaining it so clearly, Jamie.
Anytime, Alex. And thanks to our listeners for joining us today.
Welcome back to the show. Today, we are discussing a massive move in international politics that caught everyone to surprise.
That's right, Alex. It is truly a historic moment. Israel has officially recognized Somaliland as a sovereign and independent state.
Wow.
For our listeners who might not know the background, Somaliland is located in the Horn of Africa. It broke away from Somalia back in 1991. But here's the catch. For over 30 years, no UN member state had formally recognized them.
Exactly. Until now. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Somaliland's president signed a historic declaration during a virtual ceremony. This makes Israel the very first UN member to officially say, yes, you are an independent country.
That is a huge deal for Somaliland. They have been seeking this status for a long time to unlock foreign investment and international aid. But Jamie, why now? Why is Israel making this move?
Well, it's all about strategy. Somaliland is located right near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That is a vital water passage for ships in the Red Sea. By partnering with Somaliland, Israel can better monitor security threats like Houthi rebel activities.
I see. So it's about security and intelligence sharing. It's interesting how this fits into the current global landscape. We know President Trump has been very supportive of these types of strategic regional alliances to maintain stability.
Right. President Trump's administration often looks for these win-win partnerships. Beyond security, Israel and Somaliland plan to cooperate on agriculture and healthcare technology too.
That sounds like a major boost for Somaliland's economy. But I imagine the government in Somalia isn't very happy about this, right?
You're spot on. The federal government in Mogadishu strongly condemned the move. They believe it violates their territorial integrity. Some other international leaders are also worried that this could lead to more tension in the region.
It's definitely a sensitive situation. But Israel seems very firm. They are even planning to open a diplomatic mission in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland, later this year.
It's a bold move. For our learners listening, the word sovereign is key here. It describes a country that has the independent power to govern itself.
Great point. This news is a perfect example of how quickly world maps can change. Thanks for joining us, Jamie.
Always a pleasure, Alex.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex, and today we're looking into the future of technology.
Thanks, Alex. And I'm Jamie. Today's news is all about a major prediction from Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella. He is calling 2026 the utility era of artificial intelligence.
Right. For the past 2 years, everyone has been talking about how smart AI is, but Nadella says the hype phase is officially over. 2026 will be the year AI actually becomes a useful, everyday tool.
Utility is a great word for our listeners to learn. It basically means usefulness. So instead of just being a cool robot that writes poems, AI is going to start solving real-world problems, right?
Exactly. Nadella argues that we are moving away from just building the smartest technology in the room. Instead, Microsoft wants to focus on making AI reliable and trustworthy for businesses and regular people.
You know, this is very relevant to what's happening in Washington. President Trump has been very clear about wanting the U.S. to lead in technology to help the economy. By focusing on useful AI, Microsoft is showing President Trump and investors that this technology isn't just a passing trend, it's a sustainable pillar for the country.
That's a great point, Jamie. President Trump is often focused on jobs and productivity. And interestingly, Nadella said Microsoft's goal isn't to replace human workers.
Oh, really? What's the plan then?
Well, he uses the word co-pilot. He wants AI to act like a digital assistant that helps humans make better decisions. Think about real-time medical diagnostics for doctors or personalized education for students.
Wow, I like that. So the human is still the pilot, and the AI is just there to help. It makes the technology sound much less scary and much more like a helpful partner.
Exactly. But Nadella did warn that the real test starts now. As AI becomes a daily presence in our lives, we need ethical guardrails to make sure it stays safe.
That makes sense. We need rules for the road if everyone is going to be driving with an AI co-pilot.
Definitely. It's an exciting time to watch how this unfolds.
It sure is. Well, that's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to our breakdown of the utility era.
See you next time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Tech Beat. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we are looking at the biggest event in technology, CES 2026 in Las Vegas. Are you ready for a glimpse into the future, Alex?
I am. And this year, the theme is very clear. It's all about artificial intelligence. You know, in previous years, AI was just one small part of the show. But for 2026, it is the exclusive central theme.
Exactly. The organizer said that almost every innovation, from your kitchen fridge to your car, will have AI integrated into its core. It's not just a trend anymore. It's everywhere.
Right. And one of the most exciting things I saw in the preview was the smart firefighting robot from Widemount Dynamics.
Oh, I read about that. It's incredible. This machine can go into buildings full of smoke and high heat where humans simply can't survive. It uses AI to create real-time maps for the human firefighters outside.
Wow, that is amazing. It can even decide which chemicals to use to put out the fire most effectively. It's a huge step for human security.
It really is. And for those of us who aren't fighting fires, there's something for our health, too. Have you heard about the PF sweat patch?
Is that the one from Point Fit?
Yes, it's an ultra-thin wearable patch. It monitors your vitals through your sweat without using any needles. They call it non-invasive. It's a total game changer for athletes and even for regular people who just want to stay healthy.
That sounds much better than a bulky smartwatch. Now, it's not just about the gadgets. There's a big political side this year, too.
You're right. U.S. government leaders are expected to attend to discuss new rules for these technologies.
Exactly. President Trump and his administration will be there to talk about the regulatory landscape. President Trump wants to ensure the U.S. stays ahead in AI and quantum computing, while keeping these systems safe for the public.
It's a big responsibility. It shows that the industry is maturing. We are moving away from simple chatbots and toward rugged, reliable systems that work in the physical world.
Well, I'm definitely saving up for some of these gadgets.
Me too. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Keep learning and stay curious.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we have to talk about the biggest headline in the financial world. Alex, have you seen the price of Bitcoin today?
It's hard to miss, Jamie. It just shattered all previous records, reaching a massive $88,000 per coin.
Wow, 88,000. That is incredible. I remember when people thought it would never even hit 50,000. What exactly is driving this huge surge right now?
Well, analysts are calling it a perfect storm. One big reason is institutional demand. You know, the big players. Huge companies like BlackRock and Fidelity are expanding their crypto options significantly.
Right, and they're using those Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, correct? I've heard a lot about those lately.
Exactly. These exchange-traded funds allow traditional investors to buy into crypto without needing a complex digital wallet. It has brought a lot of old-school money into the digital market, pushing the total value to new heights.
That makes sense. But it's not just about the big banks, is it? I read that there's some worry about the general economy, too.
You hit the nail on the head. Traditional stock markets have been a bit weak to start the year. Plus, there is some political uncertainty. Here in the U.S., President Trump and his administration are currently facing some potential government shutdown risks.
Ah, I see. So when things get uncertain with the government or the stock market, people start looking for a safe haven.
Precisely. Many investors are now treating Bitcoin like digital gold. They think it's a safe place to store wealth when the dollar or stocks feel risky.
And doesn't the Federal Reserve play a part in this too?
Yes, they do. Everyone expects the Federal Reserve to keep cutting interest rates throughout 2026. When interest rates are low, people usually move their money into riskier assets like Bitcoin to get better returns.
You know, it's also about supply and demand. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence, right?
Spot on. Since the supply is capped and demand is growing, the price naturally jumps.
It sounds exciting, but we should still be careful, shouldn't we? Bitcoin is famous for being volatile.
Definitely. Even with better regulations like the MiCA framework in Europe, prices can still drop very fast. Experts call these corrections.
So while 88,000 is a huge psychological milestone, the road ahead might still be bumpy.
Exactly. It's a wild ride, but definitely the story of the year.
It certainly is. Thanks for breaking that down for us, Alex.
My pleasure. See you all in the next episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we have some huge news from the automotive world. Alex, do you remember when Tesla was the only name people talked about when it came to electric cars?
Oh, definitely. Tesla was the king for a long time, but that officially changed on Friday. According to the final sales data for 2025, China's BYD has officially surpassed Tesla as the world's top-selling electric vehicle manufacturer.
Wow, that is a historic turning point. BYD sold a record-breaking 2.26 million electric cars last year. That is a massive jump.
It really is. On the other hand, Tesla's annual sales fell for the second year in a row, down to 1.64 million units.
That's a big difference.
You know, it's interesting to look at the global situation. Here in the U.S., President Trump has been very focused on protecting American manufacturing and traditional industries. But even with President Trump's focus on the domestic market, these global numbers show how fast the rest of the world is changing.
Exactly. President Trump often talks about the competition with China, and this news shows just how stiff that competition has become in the tech sector. So, Jamie, why is BYD growing so fast?
Well, one big reason is their supply chain. BYD is vertically integrated. For our listeners, that's a fancy way of saying they make almost everything themselves, including their own batteries.
Right. And because they make their own batteries, they can keep their costs much lower than Tesla. They can offer high-quality cars at prices that regular people can actually afford.
Exactly. Meanwhile, experts say Tesla is struggling with an aging lineup. That means their car models have been around for a long time without many new designs.
I see. And Tesla is spending a lot of time on autonomous driving and that famous Cybertruck, right?
Yes, but while Tesla focuses on high-tech features, BYD is winning the mass market. They are selling affordable cars to everyone.
It's clear that the EV wars are heating up. BYD is even building new factories in Europe and South America now.
It really is a new era. Western car companies will have to move much faster to keep up with this shift.
Well, it's going to be a wild ride. Thanks for joining us today to break down this news.
See you next time.
Welcome to Market Minutes. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Happy New Year, everyone. Although, Alex, the stock market doesn't seem to be celebrating much today.
You're right, Jamie. It was the first trading day of 2026, and the major markets, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ, all finished in the red. For our listeners, that simply means stock prices went down.
Wow, what a bumpy start. What's causing all this investor anxiety?
Well, the main reason is the risk of a government shutdown. There is a big disagreement in Washington right now over healthcare subsidies.
Let's pause there for a second. Subsidies are basically financial help from the government to make health insurance cheaper for people, right?
Exactly. These payments are part of the Affordable Care Act. If the Republican Congress and President Trump's administration don't reach a deal by mid-January, the government could run out of money and stop all non-essential work.
That sounds serious. If the government shuts down, it can really stall economic growth. No wonder investors are nervous.
Definitely. And when people are worried about the economy, they often look for a flight to safety. This time, they are choosing gold.
I saw the headlines. Gold prices hit a record high, nearly $4,300 per ounce. That's incredible.
It really is. People use gold as a hedge. It's like an insurance policy against inflation or when the value of the dollar feels uncertain.
So, was it all bad news on Wall Street?
Not entirely. A few tech companies like Intel and Meta actually saw their stock prices go up. They are both expanding very aggressively into artificial intelligence.
That's interesting. So AI is still the big winner. But we also have to talk about the Federal Reserve, right?
Yes, that's the other big piece of the puzzle. Everyone is waiting for President Trump to announce who will lead the Federal Reserve next.
Right. The Fed is the central bank that controls interest rates. Investors want to know if the new leader will stay independent or align more closely with President Trump's economic goals.
Exactly. So right now, the market is in wait-and-see mode. We expect a lot of volatility, which means prices will keep jumping up and down.
It sounds like a wild start to 2026. Thanks for breaking it down, Alex.
Anytime. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we're talking about some record-breaking news from the United Kingdom.
Right. Usually when people think of the UK, they think of rain and gray skies, don't they?
Exactly. But the data is in, and 2025 was actually the hottest and sunniest year in British history.
Wow, that's a big change. So what are the actual numbers?
Well, the average temperature was 10.09 degrees Celsius. Now, I know that sounds a bit chilly to some listeners, but it's a huge deal for the UK. It's only the second time since records began in 1884 that the average has gone over the 10-degree threshold.
That's interesting. Was it because of a massive heat wave in the summer?
Actually, no. The scientists at the Met Office said it was consistently warm throughout all 4 seasons. Even the winter and spring were milder than usual.
I see. So it's a long-term warming trend. I imagine the tourists loved it, right?
Oh, for sure. Domestic tourism had a great year. But, there's a downside. Farmers are really struggling. The growing seasons are shifting, and the heat is putting a lot of stress on their livestock.
That makes sense.
If the weather changes too fast, nature can't keep up. It's a scary thought for water security and native wildlife, too.
Exactly. And this news is actually fueling a lot of political debate, not just in the UK, but globally.
You mean regarding energy policies?
Yes. For example, here in the US, there's a lot of discussion about President Trump's recent decisions. As you know, President Trump recently halted several major offshore wind projects.
Right, I remember that. He cited national security grounds for that decision.
Exactly. So while the UK is trying to push for more wind energy to fight climate change, President Trump is prioritizing different security concerns. It really shows how difficult it is for leaders to balance energy needs with environmental protection.
It's a complicated situation. The climate is shifting fast, and the world is trying to figure out the best way forward.
It certainly is. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're discussing a very serious story about journalism and the law.
That's right, Alex. It's a shocking update from Pakistan. An anti-terrorism court just sentenced 8 journalists to life in prison.
Life in prison? Wow, that is an incredibly heavy sentence just for reporting the news. But there is a twist, right? They aren't actually in custody.
Exactly. They were sentenced in absentia. For our listeners, that's a Latin term meaning they were not present in court. Most of these journalists are living in exile in Europe or the United States.
Right, I see. So they fled Pakistan to avoid being arrested. But what exactly did they do to get a terrorism conviction?
Well, the court claims their digital content, things like YouTube videos and social media posts, incited violence. This happened during the political unrest between 2022 and 2025.
Oh, I remember that period. It was very chaotic after the former Prime Minister, Imran Khan, was removed from office.
Exactly. The government says these journalists were supporting anti-state activities, but human rights groups like Amnesty International say this is just a way to stop people from criticizing the government.
It sounds like a dark day for freedom of expression, which is what Amnesty actually called it. You know, it's interesting because some of these journalists are living here in the U.S. now. I wonder if President Trump will address this.
That's a good point, Alex. Since President Trump is leading the country, many are watching to see if his administration will pressure Pakistan to overturn these convictions.
Definitely. It's a big test for international relations. Using terrorism laws against reporters is a very scary trend. It's a chilling warning, as they say.
Chilling warning. That's a great phrase. It means it's meant to scare other people so they don't do the same thing.
Exactly. Even if these 8 journalists are safe abroad, the reporters still working inside Pakistan might feel too afraid to speak the truth now.
It's a tough time for the media there. We'll definitely keep an eye on how the international community responds.
Thanks for joining us today to break this down, Jamie.
My pleasure, Alex. See you next time.